Okay, let's start talking about ecology. We have completed the human systems of Bio 20, and we are going to now move forward into life on a planet X, which is the ecology unit of interactions and ecosystems, essentially. So, let's start with biomes. So, in this video, please follow along with your notes. I will be doing a note to check, as well as there will be a checkpoint that you will have to complete at the end of this video at your uh, leisure, meaning pretty much whenever you have a chance after this video, but it has to be done in order to move on to the next checkpoint. So we're going to start big. Ecology. What does ecology mean? Ecology means house, means home. The Greeks used it as a word to refer to where people inhabited. All right. If you look at the side there, you can kind of see how that infographic works, talking about technology, nature, and culture, and how it works with ecology. Okay. We're going to look at the ecology more based on I guess what you would say ecosystems, communities and species and stuff like that. So that's more of kind of the ecology. If you look at like big idea, we're going to just focus more on, like I said, ecosystems and how they interact with each other. So when we refer to ecology, we're actually referring to the relationship between the things that are alive and the things that are not alive. Okay. So things that are alive are organisms. Things that are not alive are like things like rocks and dirt. However, when we start talking about them in class, you are going to hear me refer to them as the word abiotic and biotic. Biotic, bio being the root word there, meaning life. Biotic things mean living. Abiotic things mean non-living. So in ecology, we're going to start with the big picture, which is planet Earth. It's essentially where we're starting. Okay. We're going to do an activity in which we're going to look at a planet that is like planet Earth, but in order to understand that, we actually need to know what's going on Earth. So we're going to talk about the biosphere. The biosphere is essentially all areas of the Earth that supports life. There's a couple different parts of the biosphere. We have the atmosphere, the hydrosphere, the geosphere, or what we call the lithosphere, and all of it combined together makes planet Earth or our biosphere. Okay, atmosphere is just referring to gases in the air. Hydrosphere is referring to the water on planet Earth, so hydro being water. And geosphere is just referring to all terrestrial parts, so like the ground, anything that's mountains, dirt, anything that is roads and all that stuff. So anything not water essentially is referred to the geosphere. The other word for it is lith being rock, lithic, the lithic era, so stuff like that. So those two words mean the same thing. So all ecosystems in the world and their interactions make up our biosphere. Okay, so everything that is interacting together makes up our biosphere. So this kind of little bit of a Venn diagram kind of just shows that it includes all parts that are inhabitable by life, and it includes all these three parts. So if you think about the overlap of different things, so like for example, the ocean has both the hydrosphere and the lithosphere involved. Okay, that's an overlap. Everything that lives within that has interactions. Okay. That makes up part of our biosphere. Anywhere that you would think where water and air would meet, or anywhere where you think air and rock would meet. Okay. All of these meet up and have interactions. So that's big picture. Biomes are next. Okay. Big picture, biosphere, the biggest picture you can have. The next step is taking the biosphere and chunking it off into different areas around the world. As you can see from my infographic here, you're going to see that there are different parts that we have based on where we are compared to the equator. So the Arctic and zones are the coldest parts of the planet. They're the furthest away from the equator. So they're at the very top, the coldest areas you can go. As you move towards the equator, you're going to notice the word tropical. Tropical being like the rainforest, okay? Lots of rain, lots of heat, lots of humidity. We live in more of the temperate zone when we talk about the Earth, and that just means that we have different seasons, we go through different seasons and phases, and we have lots of different types of precipitation, and we'll kind of get into that. So, in order to start this, first we have to understand that climate refers to average weather conditions. So you're going to hear me talk about climate. So climate includes the weather conditions and patterns over the last 30 plus years. Okay. So how does the wind blow? How does the water fall? What is the sun like? How long how much snow do you have? Okay. So average weather patterns over a period of time. We call that climate. Why do we need to know about climate? Well, because climate is 100% affected by temperature and rainfall. Climate is going to be, in our case for biomes, the key indicator of where a biome is found on planet Earth. So if it's really hot and has lots of rain, it's probably going to be near the equator. If it's really cold and very dry, you're probably looking at the Arctic. So here's an example of an infographic from Canada. So here you can see that we have annual precipitation and different temperature ranges. So if you think about us near roughly, I think Edmonton is on here somewhere. Yeah, there's Edmonton. You'll see that the annual precipitation and the average temperature range are fairly similar. Okay. If you think of as we move away from inside the provinces towards the coasts, like Victoria, St. John's, the two outer ones, you see they have annual high amounts of precipitation. Okay. But their temperature range is still quite small. So they live in the areas that are still temperate because they don't have high temperatures and high precipitation. Okay. Now, the reason why these things happen, and even just in Canada alone, is because we produce global air movements and water movements, so trade winds and ocean currents that interact with things like mountains and islands and lakes. And so rain falls not randomly, but it falls based on what kind of blocks it. As rain clouds pass from the ocean, so from BC towards Alberta, they hit the range of the Rocky Mountains. They can't always cross the Rocky Mountains very well, so they'll be a little too heavy, so they got to drop some rain to get a little bit higher up into the atmosphere to travel over the mountains to drop rain on the other side. So you're not getting as much rain in the prairies as you do in BC. So this is something I want you to become very familiar with. Watch this video again, take snapshots of this. This beautiful graph is probably one of the most informative graphs on biomes. Okay. What it is showing you is that this is a definition. A biome is a mix of plants, animals, and organisms that live in specific environmental conditions. Okay. You will notice the two graph axes. One shows temperature and one shows precipitation. As we move across and have more and more precipitation, you're going to notice that we go from being very dry to very wet. And as you move from cold to hot along the y-axis, you're going to notice that it changes what kind of biome we're in. So at the very bottom here, the tundra is a very dry and a very cold place to live. As we move along here, you'll notice that we move along and get warmer and warmer, we're going to hit things like the tropical rainforest, which is super close to the equator. All of these different biomes are because of how much rain falls and how warm it gets. Okay. So you can have a place that's really warm, like the desert, but it doesn't have a lot of rain. So that's why it's over here. So that's it. That's biomes in a nutshell. That's biosphere in a nutshell. Our next video is going to be on adaptations, which will be posted in a day or two. So if you can make sure that you have everything from biomes in your notes, as like I said, there's going to be a point that you are going to need to meet in order to move on through the rest of these videos.